Am I admitting them, Dave? They're in. Right. Roger, I don't think you were first.
He can't unmute himself.
All right, okay. Excellent. So we got our president in too, which I'm pleased to say. That's Dusko Novakovic, treasurer to the SPA.
Evening all.
Yeah. There you go, they can.
Evening,
hey. Evening, folks.
Evening all.
Evening.
Smashing.
Second meeting of the week.
Yes.
And another one to follow later.
Yeah.
But not tomorrow, David.
Looks like you're still in your dressing gown.
How's the ear, Dave?
It's hold on, there we go.
Oh, here. I'll drink to that.
You should see the other guy.
Bit of makeup will cover that, Dave.
Yeah, I've got to check to see whether I've knocked the polar alignment out or not.
Is that where you slipped?
Yeah, I hit my head on the foot of the steel mobile tripod. It's a big thick bit of metal, so you know I got off really lightly.
Evening, Jens. We're going to have you doing a talk for us as well soon, aren't we?
Yeah.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Oh, Nick.
Nick, are you going to arrange with Jens when he does his talk?
Yeah, we can. I think we decided a bit later in the year to give Jens a chance to prepare it all. But I think May June time. I think we thought. Yeah.
Okay.
Share screen, share video.
Actually have two possible presentations. I have one that's finished on infinity, and I have one in very early draft form on the Arecibo telescope.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
It's on infinity. How can it be finished?
Well, that's the problem. It took me a long time.
Good. Well, I'm going to open up the meeting because we're 7:30, and it's lovely to see all of you back and some new friends. We've got some of the friends from the Virtual Astronomy Club with us tonight. We've had pretty much 10 months without a meeting at the Humphrey Rooms, which is very sad. And after my being there for 35 years, there's been a big gap, but it has seemed like a bit of a sabbatical for some of us. So generally speaking, we're hoping to start having our regular meetings, but just one a month to begin with. Now, I'm very encouraged to see that we've got currently 33 people, which is definitely good news. And we've got the first meeting in February will be on the second Monday, and that's going to be Mike Frost going to give us a talk about some notable ladies' contributions to the British Astronomical Association. And then we will continue with that. Now, if the numbers are maintained at goodly levels, then we'll probably hopefully start to introduce our more informal meetings like the telescopic topics meetings in the fullness of time. But we're just going to see how the next couple of meetings go and then make a decision between us. Another thing I've just got to mention is the subscriptions. Those of you who are Northamptonshire Natural History Society members, or have been up to now, bear in mind that we've got a little bit of a gap before you need to pay your subscriptions this year. Our treasurer and president has decided we don't have to cough up till April. But if you want to cough up earlier, of course, that always helps the society. If you've got anything left, I don't think the Chancellor of the Exchequer is helping us with this at the moment. So I think we've just got to keep the society going as best we can. Because even if we're not in the rooms, sadly, in the Humphrey Rooms, sadly, we still have the overheads relating to keeping the building going. And we soon hope that we'll be able to get back there, perhaps in the spring or summer, for some face-to-face meetings and another dose of Cyril's tea, which is always very welcome. So tonight we're launching the first meeting of 2021, and I'm delighted to welcome Martin Griffiths from South Welsh Wales. Martin is a very accomplished speaker. He's a regular lecturer. He's an astronomer too, and he's the director of the Brecon Beacons Observatory in the International Dark Sky Reserve in the Brecon Beacons. He's an author of several books, and I'm an admirer of his images on the BAA community pages. Tonight he's going to talk to us about a most unusual subject for us, but nevertheless one that I know fascinates everybody. That is contact with ET and how it will affect us. Now, I'm aware that the chances of anybody contacting us in my lifetime is slim, shall we say, but you just don't know. And certainly over the years, we've had lots of films about alien encounters, from nice benign ones like Close Encounters, and rather less comfortable ones like Alien series. But I'm going to now hand over to Martin to give us his talk about contact with ET. How will it affect us? Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nick. Okay, I'll just make sure that all this works. Okay, let's go down to that. Can you all see my screen okay?
If it's a skyscraper,
yeah, this is New York.
New York.
So sorry about that. This
Not
was
been there yet.
Well, I was lecturing on the Queen Mary when I took it, so
all right.
Terrible, absolutely terrible.
Well, you're up.
There we are. Okay,
Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. That's me. Right. I think that it's fair to say that this is particularly true. If you're the first human ever to make alien contact, most historians and scientists agree this would be the most important moment in all of human history. Yeah, we've been waiting for this for some time, and I don't think it's going to be an individual effort. It's going to be something that is basically going to be a team effort, and that team could range from, say, 2 people up to about 200 to 2,000 to possibly even 20,000, because there are so many people now involved in looking out into the cosmos. And I think that the discovery of alien life elsewhere may well be serendipitous anyway. It may be something that we're not actually looking for at the time, or we come across it anyway. So how important is it going to be, and how is it going to affect us? Well, this is Frank Drake standing outside one of the Greenbank telescopes. And as he said a long time back, we can't assert that interstellar contact is totally devoid of risk. We can only offer the opinion that in all probability the benefits greatly outweigh the risks. And yeah, you know, that's very true. Any sort of new beginning with a species that is so completely different to ours is going to be fraught with all kinds of, well, I would say hazards and pitfalls and all sorts. But of course, we do have precedent here, don't we? If you think of the voyages of exploration in the past, they ran huge risks, didn't they? You know, I mean, you think of Columbus looking for India. It didn't end very well for the people in the Caribbean, did it? But, you know, it opened the world up. And so many voyages of exploration have done exactly the same. And they've been catastrophe for people on the receiving end from Europe. And, you know, they brought great wealth into Europe. So we hope that we've learned some lessons from these kind of things, but we can never really be sanguine about it. We have to really think about this in the context of our own history. So we hope that it will be the same with contact. But of course, we do have particular protocols and precedents that we have set ourselves. The problem is that there's no real precedent for any alien contact apart from what we have here on Earth. So if we come across somebody like the Borg, for instance, it'd be curtains for us. It's as simple as that. And of course, we are broadcasting. out into space, even if it's inadvertently. Our radio and our television broadcasts are going out into a bubble that's over 100 light years across now, weak though they may be. It's still quite possible for any alien intelligence to pick them up. But what we end up with is something which we call Frank White's rule. The closer any contact in alien civilization is, the greater the impact upon us, which of course is true. You know, if they're down the road 10,000 light years, even traveling at the speed of light is going to take them 10,000 years to get here. You know, onboard ship time will be neither here nor there. But it's a case of, if we know that they're coming, then we got 10,000 years to worry about it. If they're only 5 light years down the road, then, you know, that's a much bigger impact upon us. And so we read significance into any events, and we need analysis of the context of alien contact before we even get it, so that we are in some respects prepared for this kind of thing. Any sort of analysis of the consequences of contact, or the, you know, how a response should be, will then determine what we do next. And that's why, you know, so many of us at SETI at the time got together. You know, terrible. Again, we were in Rio de Janeiro, which is why this is called the Rio scale. And we come up with a way of quantifying in some mathematical probability of how we would respond to any sort of signal. The Rio scale is equal to Q times D, okay? Q is the estimated level of consequences, where it's a sum of 3 parameters, okay? What the sort of phenomena is, who discovers it, and what type of discovery it is, and how far away any contact could be. And D represents the assessed credibility of any claimed discovery. So in other words, if we say get signals that are put out, you know, we get news from the SETI scientists or from other astronomers, then we would assess the credibility as being very high. If we got it from the tinfoil hat brigade, then we're not going to give it much credence at all, are we? You know, if we got it from QAnon, we're not going to give it any credence. It has to come from a scientist, or at least someone with an engineering background who is involved in the entire search as well. So effectively, Q can be quantified as, you know, a function of the class of reported stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then the value for D is a bit more subjective, and it depends on, you know, who's doing it at the time, how many people have actually had access to the information, how many people have actually looked at the signals and have determined them to be alien in nature. At the end of the day, this is obviously based upon them not landing on the White House lawn. You know, they have an ideal opportunity to land on the White House lawn at the moment and take away the incumbent, but that might be interesting, to say the least. So, effectively, this is how it's put together. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it detracts a little bit from what we're going to say anyway, okay? An Earth-specific message is number 6, okay? So if we go back to that, 10 is extraordinary, 9 outstanding, 8 far-reaching, blah, 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 okay? Now, goes from number 1, traces of astroengineering, you know, the purpose of which is unknown, or an Earth-specific message right at the top. If we had an Earth-specific message from within the solar system, people would be running around with their hands in the air screaming, wouldn't they? You know, because they're here, they're coming, they're on their way. Is it within a distance which allows communication within a human lifetime? Interesting. Okay, we still rank that very high. Is it extragalactic? We're not going to worry about it, are we? You know, it's nice to have that contact, but if somebody sent us a message from Andromeda, the message is 3 million years old and is obviously not meant for us, is it? It's just a broad, general broadcast. Then the type of discovery, you know, is it a SETI or SETA observation? If it's a non-one, you know, to be honest, you know, it all depends. And then the credibility, is it absolutely reliable, or is it fake or fraudulent at the 0 end? You multiply anything by 0 and you end up with 0 anyway. So we can then utilize the Rio scale to determine what we would do next. You know, if it was going to be high on the Rio scale, where it's either extraordinary or we've got to do something about it, then we start informing each other and we start informing our political masters. I can't call them betters, masters will do. Now, the protocols for this kind of thing, I'm not going to go into too much, even though I wrote the blooming things. Effectively, it'll be down to the scientist to tell the United Nations once it's all confirmed. We are not going to tell any one individual, no matter what their political affiliation. It'll be a global community message more than anything else, okay? So how could any contact arise? Well, what we've been doing for a long time, of course, is dependent upon radio signals because, of course, they traverse space, they go through all the interstellar medium, there's very little dispersion of them, and, you know, they go for miles and miles and miles. Great. And, of course, they travel at the speed of light, so we could have a two-way conversation depending upon the distance with radio signals. What if we discovered an alien artifact, perhaps within our solar system, or even buried here on Earth? You know, Earth has been pretty well explored, apart from, of course, the, you know, the oceans themselves. We know fairly, you know, well what the oceans look like as far as the topology underneath the water is concerned, but we don't know them down to the kind of detail that we know the moon or Mars, for instance, as yet. We could have an alien messenger probe come through the solar system and come and meet us, so that would be a direct form of contact, or we could indeed have them land on the White House lawn and say the immortal words, "Take me to your leader," which I doubt they would, because any intelligent species that is going to be watching our Earth is going to find out an awful lot about us, first of all, and they would probably opt for someone that is a bit less garrulous and vigorous with a gun than the Americans, so we hope anyway. So any direct contact would probably be done somewhere different to America. You know, we don't really know. They could come here all the way and not find out anything about us and just land wherever they wanted. Or they could come just like in Star Trek, was it 4, and talk to the whales or something. You know, it's unusual, but we just don't know. So there are 4 types, okay? We could have a discrete messenger probe sent to us, just like we send probes out. We could have people land here. We could discover something that they left behind, or we could get contact through radio at some point, or even laser. There is that as well. So it could be optical or radio or electromagnetic sources of some kind. Now, we have already sent signals out into space. You know, what if they received our signals and we received theirs? That's what SETI at home does, is it uses Fourier analysis to have a look through, you know, so much data that we got. We have millions upon millions of years worth of man years worth of data, really, you know, from Arecibo and so many other telescopes across the globe. So crunching through that is still highly important. This is the message that was sent by Frank Drake and Carl Sagan in 1974. It's a great signal. It's all in binary code. It's encoded into pictures and pictographs as well, as you can see here. And we sent it to, what, Messier 13? All those astronomers amongst us will immediately know Messier 13 is quite distant. And if there are aliens on any planets in this rather dim and remote sort of boondocks of the galaxy, we're not going to get a reply from them until the 54th millennium at earliest. So the ability to send the message was great, but the ability to sort of, you know, listen in for something else is going to take us a long, long time. So we have the ability to send, we have the ability to receive, but so far we haven't found anything. And of course, we have to understand any message that's being sent as well as they have to. You know, we're always sort of very blasé about this kind of thing. Oh, we can talk in the language of mathematics. Yeah, okay. We know that the value of pi is going to be exactly the same on the other side of the universe as it is here. We know that there are fundamental constants of nature that we use within our own numerology, for instance, and they would have their own numerology. All we'd have to do is translate the two. But, you know, I got to be honest, it's a kind of killer down the pub, isn't it, talking about mathematics? You know, we want something that's a little bit more social than that kind of thing, but it would do as a start. And of course, as the cartoons got here, you've got aliens landing in the ubiquitous flying saucer. What's the matter with them? I thought you said you've been here before. And he's using the Sumerian dictionary. Our own language changes so quickly. Think of what we've got with tech speak. if you pick up your child's phone or your grandchildren's phone and have a look at some of the messages they got there, they're pretty garbled to somebody of my generation, and it takes some time to work them out. Well, you can imagine what it's going to be like in a few years' time from now. And so the language of the message is important, highly important, but of course it's going to take us some while to decode that kind of thing, isn't it? Then we've got the content of the message. Perhaps that doesn't really matter because it's going to take a while to work that out. Are we going to exchange mathematical symbols with them? Yes, that would be a good thing to do. Is it going to be in some sort of binary coding where things are turned on, turned off, just like they are in computers? Would it be quantum? Would it be this? Would it be that? We don't know. We're only basing these things upon our own resources and technology at the moment. Would they send pictures? I hope so. We've still got to decode the pictures, of course, and the carrier waves that have got them. But does everything depend on our understanding the message? Perhaps the message is content in itself. Maybe the kind of thing that we may never understand, but the fact that we've got it and we're recipients of it, and we send a message back saying we have heard you, and even they can't understand that, the fact that they've had to reply is perhaps the best thing imaginable for some time. So making contact in the first place may well be sufficient, and it may take us some time to decode these kind of things if we can do it at all. So understanding the message, is it necessary to understand it? Well, we would hope so at some point anyway. The problem is that we're so prepared for anything that comes out of space, and we get so used to hearing about aliens that if we did contact them by radio, which would be the best and most preferable at the moment from our perspective, and possibly theirs due to distance, it's going to be a 9-day wonder, isn't it? Look, I've been wanting this particular moment all my life. As Nick said earlier, I don't think we're going to see it in our lifetime, and we may not see it in our children's or our children's lifetime. It's going to take a long time to do this kind of thing, because I think intelligence is a fairly rare thing. But having said that, if we did get a message fairly, within the next 10 years or so, that'll be brilliant. But once it's gone down through the newspapers, from the Times, the Telegraph, the Independent, all the way down to the Sun and the Star, people are going to become jaded by it. So how far away are they? Well, they're 2,000 light years away from us. What does that mean to us? Well, even if they set off now at the speed of light, it's going to take them 2,000 years to get here. Oh, well, we're not bothered and we're never going to see them. And it does jade people, that kind of thing. It would be the most exciting thing to happen in my lifetime for a long time if we ever heard from them. And that is what would keep me going for a while. But if we got that signal, we still have bills to pay, we still have kids to go through university, we still have mortgages, we have all the gamut of human problems still. So what if they're 300 light years away? Great. What if they're 100 light years away? A 2-century conversation is still a long time. They can send us material, we can send them material. Great. But it's still going to take a century between these exchanges, isn't it? And so any sort of contact with an alien civilization is necessarily, at that distance, going to be a long-term project that would, of course, require quite some financial input for a long, long time. Now then, are there any alien artifacts around? One of the things that came out of the whole Alien series was, well, the follow-up Prometheus, which wasn't a very good film. So if you haven't gone out to watch it, don't bother. But it's rather silly from perspective of scientists anyway. Here you've got one of the so-called engineers with his little capsule here, which actually dissolves his body, and the DNA goes into the waters of the world then. And of course, they evolve to become us. Look, if there were engineers capable of doing this kind of thing, they wouldn't have to destroy themselves in the process to do this. It's nonsensical. Anyone with that kind of capability would be seen as gods anyway. So is there anything alien in an artifact within our DNA? The answer to that is no. Okay, there just isn't. We've mapped the entire human genome and the genome of many other species as well. And we can see that we are inextricably interlinked with them. We have evolved along pathways that go back to the least sort of, ancestors imaginable, microbes. And we know that there's nothing particularly alien about them. They all show evidence that they've come from a last universal common ancestor, which, okay, could well have been from outside the Earth, but that's unlikely as well, because it seems that the material is already here anyway. So, is part of our DNA an alien message? No, it's not. What if they left an artifact for us, perhaps not on Earth, but somewhere on the moon? Because, of course, it takes a spacefaring nation to get there anyway. And within the next 5 years or so, America is meant to be going back to the moon. China's going to go back to the moon, or going to go to the moon, because they haven't had a manned unit go there yet. And we find something like in 2001, where you have this entire obelisk buried there, ready for us to dig up. That would be a great idea. But the thing is, from Arthur C. Clarke's short story, The Sentinel, it wasn't buried. It was rather obvious that it could be found, but it would be found on the moon by a spacefaring, peaceful species. And this is a great idea, but what would be the point? All aliens would have done is said, well, we've came here, we've left this, it's up to you now to do what you can with that information. Unless that artifact had some sort of information that enabled us to find them, it would be no point in putting it there. Beside which, when did they put it there? They might have passed through this area millions of years ago. As Lauren Isley once said, what if they came here during the Carboniferous period and shot a probe down to the Earth to see if there's intelligent life here? And this beautiful, sleek, shining object is clambered over by hissing reptiles as the delicate, intricate mechanism winds down mindlessly with nothing to report. Yeah. Timing is everything. And so we all have to be around at the same time doing the same thing. And that is a very, very big ask. So leaving an artifact behind, all very well, but we need a lot more information than the ones in the Sentinel or in 2001. What if they come here? Direct contact. Here they are, look, exchanging all kinds of alien goodies. Looks like gold in the back of Farmer John's truck here for a cow. Still munching the hay. In America, people take this kind of thing seriously. If you listen to some of the UFO buffs out there, and you have a look at some of the statistics, in America alone, 1 in 5 people claim to have been abducted. That is a ridiculous amount of people out of 360 million on the continent. I'm laughing at this because it would never happen in Wales. There'd be too many curtain twitchers watching for a start. We give the game away straight away. And why would aliens come down to the middle of nowhere, talk to somebody, who, admittedly may be a bit of a businessman and hopefully knows what's going on, but then erases memory? None of this makes sense at all. We do not see aliens coming down to the prairies of America or the prairies or the steppes of Russia and abducting people. It just doesn't happen. And when you have a look at these abduction sort of scenarios, it's all very weird anyway, for the simple reason we got racist aliens. No one's been abducted from China or India, and that's where the largest population on Earth is. So why aren't they taking the Asians, How many people do they take from Africa? No, they only take Americans. We're lucky here in the UK, actually, and in Europe, because we're abducted by a race called the Nordics. And they are 6 foot tall, blonde female aliens. And it's the kind of thing that, most red-blooded males would probably want of a certain age anyway, isn't it? So let them go. Are we going to have the kind of peaceful direct contact that so many people envision? As we can see with the Vulcans here meeting humans for the first time in Star Trek First Contact. Excuse me a sec, I got out a slurp of the red. Well, that would be beneficial for all if they did that kind of thing. But we have to remember that there could be some sort of, prime directive in all this kind of thing. They're not going to instantly share their technology. They're not going to give away secrets. They're not going to show us how things work, which is fine. We have to do these things for ourselves. But knowing that we are not alone and have been visited in this manner could well be beneficial for humanity in the long run, but it would take generations to get over this kind of thing. Thankfully, once again, the Vulcans in First Contact land in the middle of a ravaged post-apocalyptic America where there are few people about. So it's almost like landing in a field next to a farmer in Iowa again. These are not very realistic and plausible scenarios, but we are trying to second guess what an alien would do if they were traveling around the place anyway, if indeed they are. So I would say that from a contact point of view, probably the best and most reasonable one is by remote contact, possibly by probe, or definitely by radio or some other electromagnetic means more than anything. And ultimately, why should they do this? Just because we want to do it, or we want them to do it. We are not privy to alien psychologies. We don't know any. And therefore, the fact that we might want to stretch out and reach out to do this kind of thing doesn't mean that every other alien species does. I would say, to be fair, that they probably do, for the simple reason they've all evolved. Okay? And evolution is the kind of thing where you have to compete for resources, and therefore exploration and reaching out and going somewhere different is what drives us from an evolutionary perspective anyway. So I would imagine that they would want to contact us simply out of curiosity and exploration more than anything else. The caption here on the cartoon, if you can't see it, says anthropologists, anthropologists. So you have this primitive so-called species here being visited by anthropologists for the first time. What are they doing? They're putting away all of their modern technology so that they don't, they give the anthropologists something to go with. The cargo cults of Indonesia and other islands across the Pacific are really interesting, actually, because so many of them ended up getting the kind of technology that we've got. And we still hear stories coming out of Papua New Guinea where tribes that have, recently been contacted are going home with fridges and televisions and satellite dishes and this, that and the other. And they're so proud to have these kind of things. They haven't got any electricity to run them, let alone find out what they actually do. So having technology from an alien species is going to be exactly the same kind of thing to us, isn't it? We might be a cargo cult with all these lovely things stuck in the corner. We have no idea what they do. But think of it from this perspective. A civilization far in advance of ours may devote only a tiny fraction of its resources to finding or communicating with life forms it deems lower. After all, how many of our anthropologists attempt communication with chimps, dolphins, and whales? We share the planet with these things and we don't understand them. And it's a lot easier to contact a dolphin, a whale, or a chimpanzee than it is an alien species. And we know that some chimps will learn sign language. We haven't got a clue what humpback whales are singing about. They have 30,000 different words in a language of a half-hour song. Dolphins are very clever and, literally can swim rings around us, and they go off and they do all kinds of interesting stuff. But ultimately, we don't fund these things either, do we? And so finances and the ability to do this kind of thing may also hamper alien civilizations looking for us too. We all have finite resources and lack funding. If we didn't, we would have solved quite a lot of different conundrums by now. So would aliens do the same? I don't know. It's an interesting thing to just leave out there for you to cogitate on. If aliens have got societies very much like ours, then obviously there are going to be the ones that are going to reach out, but it depends upon the amount of funding and the ability to do these things and the political willpower behind it all as well, if they have a very similar sort of politics to ourselves. We just don't know. This is why I find it so fascinating, is that any speculation will go, but you've got to come back to Carl Sagan's dictum as well, is that, it's good to have an open mind, but don't leave it so open that your brains fall out and roll about on the floor. So let's be careful with this one. Then, of course, we have all kinds of problems, don't we, once we've initiated that contact or we get contact. Here's an alien species talking to a scientist, and they're saying, you want our technology? Well, we actually come here to ask by any chance your civilization and manage to come up with a cure for the common cold. And there they are with their hankies and they're all sneezing. Yeah, alien contact isn't a panacea for all our ills. It will bring its own problems, no doubt. One of them will not be diseases, because these things evolve in different environments completely, and they would be germane to the particular alien carrying them. Although we do get cross-species barriers broken down with diseases here, COVID-19 being a typical one anyway, that's because we live in close proximity to these animals and we share certain evolutionary traits with them, especially in our DNA. We would not do the same with aliens, so we're not going to go down with the alien version of COVID-19. What are extraterrestrials even going to look like? Because they always look humanoid, don't they? Well, they do on Star Trek, and they all speak English, obviously. It isn't going to be like that at all. We can't imagine what aliens are going to look like at all. It's very, very hard for us to think of them. One of the best depictions of aliens in recent culture is the film Arrival, actually. Excuse me. Where you have the septopods within it, and the form of linguistics that they have are really interesting, based upon, you know, ink and pictographs and things like this. It's a brilliant depiction, and of course it's mostly based very loosely upon H.G. Wells. His Martians were unlike us. They were big animals, which were basically all brain. You know, the tentacles that they had were just the remnants of fingers and hands, and they were totally alien to us. And of course, what sort of philosophies and religions would they bring with them? Because you have to admit, you know, that any intelligent species is going to have a background of some sort of religious ideology, for the simple reason that, you know, you may believe, you may not believe. Personally, I'm an atheist, but when it comes down to religion, I find them fascinating, because any sort of religions are our first attempt to understand the world around us and understand the universe around us. That you know, just like anything we do for the first time, it might not necessarily be the best. Therefore, aliens may well have some sort of religious ideology in their background, even if they don't utilize it. So our religions could be under threat. What if the aliens visiting us are the interstellar form of Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, or the Mormons, or you know, some sort of very, very extreme cult? We just don't know. I mean, it's unlikely, but their religions may well, you know, impact upon our own in some respects. They would certainly impact upon our cultures. Most of our cultures are becoming very, very mainstream anyway, thanks to the Coca-Cola culture taking over the world in the latter part of the 20th century. And most sort of, you know, natural cultures are being forced back into tiny, tiny little areas, you know, across the world. What about technology? You know what the queues are like for the latest iPhone, you know. To be honest, I don't see the point, but there we are. If that's what they want to do, then carry on. Can you imagine what alien technology is going to be like if we think that, you know, the greatest form of technological sophistication is the iPad or the iPhone? Well, you know, we just don't know what they're going to bring, do we? But it'll impact upon our industries. It'll also impact upon our philosophy. We've seen this already in the past, so there is precedent for this kind of thing, because, of course, we've had the scientific revolution. When Copernicus altered our perception that the Earth was not the center of the cosmos anymore, and that it cast us adrift, and we had to work out where we were for ourselves, that altered our philosophical outlook upon humanity as well. We now had to understand that we were alone, and that bred new forms of philosophy that basically depended upon humanity. We became humanists because of this kind of thing, rather than religionists. And of course, what about our ecology? Are they going to introduce new plants? Are they going to, help us with the problems that we've got? There are all sorts of things. And of course, I said earlier, the timing of these kind of things is all important. We have to be in a prepared state. They have to be in the right place at the right time, and so do we. And to ask that of the cosmos is really hard. We could be broadcasting to a civilization that's just 20 light years down the road to us. But at this moment in time, they're in their early medieval period. They're not going to pick us up, are they? They're going to be completely unaware that we are there. They are never going to have the technology for several hundred years if they're following very similar patterns, even if they are those that are undergoing the scientific revolution much quicker than we did, and an industrial revolution faster than we did. It's a case of it's still going to take time to get in touch with them, and therefore timing is vastly important when it comes down to contacting ET. Our problem is also this one. We touched upon it when I talked about Frank Drake. This is Kurt Vonnegut, one of my favorite authors. He's now gone, but he wrote a fantastic book called Slaughterhouse-5, in which his protagonist, Billy Pilgrim, is actually captured by aliens and taken to a zoo on the home planet Tralfamadori. But he had this to say about alien contact, because he likened it to 1492. As American children, we were taught to memorize this year with pride and joy, as the year people began living full and imaginative lives on the continent of North America. Well, actually, people have been living full and imaginative lives on the continent of North America for thousands of years before that. 1492 was simply the year sea pirates began to rob, cheat, and kill them. And the chief weapon of sea pirates, however, was their capacity to astonish. Nobody could believe until it was too late how heartless and greedy they were. That is a phenomenal indictment of humanity. And it's true, isn't it? What we've done as Europeans to the rest of the world is basically taken them for granted and robbed, cheated, and murdered right, left, and centre. Most of it wasn't our fault, and of course we were children of our times. But when we look at that, we've got this precedence that we've set ourselves. Would aliens be the sea pirates that would come here to rob, cheat, and kill us unwittingly, because based upon their own perceptions and philosophies, this is what they do? And of course, as Vonnegut says, the capacity to astonish is everything. Arthur C. Clarke came out with a brilliant law that, any sufficiently advanced technology would seem like magic to us. Can you imagine what guns and germs and steel were like to people living in the Caribbean in 1492? They had never seen this kind of thing. They captured Columbus and his crew, and Columbus said, "You better let us go." And the natives said, "Well, why?" "Well, because my God is angry with yours and he's going to swallow up the moon tonight." Because he knew from tables, astronomical tables, that there was going to be a lunar eclipse. Well, the natives laughed until there was a lunar eclipse. And the furore that created, that these people from far away knew that this was going to happen, astonished them completely. And they just rolled over straight away. Sadly, 3 million of them were dead by the time that Columbus died as well. So it's a salutary lesson that we have to be careful in any sort of encounter of this nature. And of course, we've also got it with the conquistadors, don't we? With the Aztecs. The violent clash of Europeans and Aztecs is as close as we've ever come to an encounter with an alien world. It's true. Two totally advanced societies, each dominant in its own universe and ignorant of the other, were utterly changed the moment they collided. And from that instant, both sides knew that only one would survive. Yeah. And unfortunately, it was the aptly named conquistadors that did it, isn't it? Would it be that way with ET? We just don't know, but we have to be careful of these kind of things. We hope that they would be more altruistic, but hoping is not knowing, is it? We just hope that any sort of contact we have with them would not be in the first person, first of all, that we would get to know each other at a distance. And of course, as Dov Sachs, the biologist, said, just because they might be technologically advanced and scientifically advanced, don't confuse that with moral authority. We tend to think of ourselves as intellectuals, as intelligentsia, if you really want the term, because we are educated and we enjoy knowing things, and we take a great deal of satisfaction of understanding the world around us. But we must not forget that it was the same sort of people as you and I who were scientists, who were physicists, who were astronomers, who were interested in the universe around them, give us thermonuclear weapons, give us the atomic bomb, give us biological weapons, give us most of the weapons that we fought wars in the 20th century with, and have given us the weapons that we still got today through the internet. We are not the moral masters of this planet, are we? Scientific knowledge and moral authority do not necessarily go together. They would undoubtedly assist one another, but we've seen in history that that is not the case given the circumstances. So we have to be careful. And of course, if we do contact aliens, who are they going to turn to? People like ourselves. And I've often gone on the BBC and several other programs where I've been introduced as an expert on aliens. Really? I've never come across an alien in my life. How the heck can I be an expert? But this is what it is portrayed as. We don't turn to an expert on the subject who doesn't actually know any more than we do, but he looks sincere, sounds convincing, and has doctor in front of his name. Yeah, that's us. We don't know any more than the ordinary person in the street. We might be a little bit more educated and thoughtful about it, but ultimately we know as much as they do about the realities of alien contact, don't we? The cultural, theological, philosophical knowledge gained from ETI could weaken and perhaps destroy our human institutions and certainly our allegiance to them. What if we come here and, somebody said, Boris is a bumbling orphan, you've got to get rid of him. Well, we already know that, but, why would aliens come and tell us that kind of thing? It's not knowledge that we don't know. But if aliens come along and said, look, we are replacing your entire political society with a much fairer one, and this is how it runs, that might be rather interesting. And, you're not going to vote anymore because we know what's better for you. Are we going to rebel against that kind of thing? Well, of course, we probably would because we're human anyway. Would it be a bad thing? We don't know. We've only got to look outside. People don't like being told what to do they? Even when it's for their own good. And so it's going to take some time for us to assimilate the knowledge of a culture that is totally alien to ours, knowing more and better than ourselves. Would our society stagnate as we encounter a different way of life? Possibly, but then we were always told when I was growing up, I'm 60 now, but by the time that the year 2000 come along, robots will be doing all the work and we'll be living life of leisure. Yeah, great if that were true. We haven't got robots doing all the housework, and I wish I was living a life of leisure. But if you do that kind of thing, you have to replace it with something else, because life is about challenges. That's an evolutionary perspective anyway. But we need to challenge ourselves. We can't just sit back and do nothing. It's nice to do it if you're on holiday, but after 2 weeks of doing that kind of thing, I would say that most of us get bored and we want to do something, see something, do something that is a little bit alternate to what we're doing at the time. So would we be trying to set new goals for ourselves? Yes, of course we would. And of course it would open up new avenues of knowledge, which would be great. Would the demise of old authorities be a bonus? Possibly, possibly not. Depends upon what they are. We've had alien encounter films, come out of Hollywood time after time, and one of the best is not the best, but it's Alien Nation, and of course District 9 as well. Two diametrically opposed kind of things, but in some respects they share some commonality. If aliens came here in the kind of technology that they would have, what sort of jobs would they expect if there was parity with them? You know, would they have all the top jobs? Well, possibly, because they know a lot more than us. They know what's best for us. They've certainly got the technology to, you know, sort of back up their arguments, if I could put it that way. Would they be in a position to make political and social demands? Would there be parity between us? That these are things that are going to take a long, long time for us to work out. You know, I mean, it's incredible that even within our own history, we've had to think about these things with people of our own race, with people who have a different skin colour. They, you know, in some areas, they still don't have parity with people who are white-skinned. Now, you know, what an awful indictment of humanity that really is. But if an alien species came along here, how would we react to that? Are we all going to pull together and face the enemy? Are they going to be the enemy? We just don't know. But are we going to treat them in the same way as we treated our brothers and sisters of the past? That would be awful, but it remains to be seen. And of course, would it pull us together in the face of any sort of threat? This is a fantastic shot from the Spanish government, where they just got a little bit heated, and two of them come to fisticuffs, and then they were all ushered out. We see what happened to the Capitol building this week. So, you know, who's going to speak for Earth? Actually, there's already a guy who does that kind of thing and is responsible for alien contact. His name is Doug Vakoch. He's a very nice guy, and I'm pleased to say he's a friend of mine. And he's got the best job description on the planet. He is the head of extraterrestrial communication for Earth at SETI, which is the most blinding job description I think I've ever come across. And as he says, he's unemployed. He hasn't got anyone to speak to apart from ordinary humans. So, would alien contact pull us together? It may, for a bit, depending upon, you know, what sort of contact is going to be. Who'll be selected to answer the message? Well, Doug is obviously the guy to go to for that kind of thing, but it will be a united front, probably through the United Nations, with Doug advising him in the background. Any sort of long-term relations would require, you know, calculations of our best interests as well, sadly, because we have to think of that. You know, they may be benign, they might be altruistic, their intent is good. But there is the old adage here that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And, you know, we can't just lie down, roll over and give everything over to an alien species who wants to put itself up to us as knowing what is good for us in the long term. They could turn out to be absolutely correct, but it's going to take generations to get into that mindset of accepting that kind of thing as human beings. So we would require high-level working teams in science and government, especially across the UN, for instance, and, you know, in the major superpowers as well. And it would be a case of government would have to start listening to scientists far more than they have in any other emergency that we have faced at this point in time. Because this might not be an emergency, but they certainly need people who know what to do and what could go wrong and could think ahead, because you generally don't get politicians that do that kind of thing. What about our religions? There's a brilliant book called Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. It's also a 3-part mini-series that has been on the television, which followed the book, you know, roughly. It was okay. Religions are really interesting. And what Arthur C. Clarke has to say is this: the instrument he handed over on permanent loan to the World History Foundation was nothing more than a television receiver with an elaborate set of controls for determining coordinates in time and space. So we got a window into time to have a look back at history here on Earth. One merely had to adjust the controls and a window into the past was opened up, and almost the whole of human history for the past 5,000 years became accessible in an instant. Within a few days, all mankind's multitudinous messiahs had lost their divinity. Beneath the fierce, passionless light of truth, faiths that have sustained millions for twice 1,000 years vanished like morning dew. All the good and all the evil they had wrought was swept suddenly into the past and could touch the minds of men no more. Humanity had lost its ancient gods. Now it was old enough to have no need for new ones. Arthur C. Clarke was an idealist. If you attack anyone's religion or you criticize anyone's religion, what is generally the mindset of the person you're criticizing? They don't go away and think, oh yeah, you might have a point there. They cling immediately to their faith more than anything else. You know, this obviously doesn't happen all the time, but for the great majority of people with a faith, this would be the case. Nothing would be swept away. But will contact with current beliefs be as redundant as gods of the past? Well, you know, nobody worships Zeus, do they, anymore? But they do really, because that's all we've had is differences in name, whether it be Tao, Confucius, Buddha, Zoroaster, Jesus, Jehovah, Allah, on and on and on it goes, doesn't it? You know, we've always got a chief god, no matter who it is. And even within Hinduism, they have Brahma anyway. So what would religions be like? This is a lovely, brilliant person, Guy Consolmagno. I was going to say lovely guy, but there we are, you know what I mean. I work quite closely with Guy. We probably know him as observers because he's one of the authors of Turn Left at Orion, one of the best books on observational astronomy for beginners. And it's brilliant, it really is. But as Arthur C. Clarke says, a faith which can't survive a collision with the truth is not worth many regrets. The Vatican, and Guy is actually a Vatican scientist. He's head of the Vatican Observatory currently. And they've already got a prepared statement. If we come across aliens, God made them too. It doesn't matter if the aliens don't believe in God or they've got different names of gods. It's the same God. So there we are. So the Catholics are prepared. Islam has been prepared from day one. The first surah of the Quran says, praise be to Allah, Lord of all the worlds. Muslims know that there's alien life out there. The Quran has told them so. So the Vatican's have got a good group. Islam has got a very good group and has got brilliant history in astronomy anyway. And other religions will probably follow suit as well. You know, I don't think it's likely that Jesus is going to have a second coming in the form of an alien like this, but you just never know, do you? And what if ET brings its own religion? Would we follow that? Yeah, people would. We've already got people who do that. Here we go. L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, okay? Scientology, this multi-million-dollar business every year with over 1 million followers now, okay, was started almost as a joke by this guy. And it started because he went into the office of John W. Campbell, the head of Astounding Science Fiction, the editor of the magazine, and he said, John, you know, you're not paying me much. You know, send a word. You know, I've got to keep writing stories all the time to make any money. And Campbell looked up from his desk and he laughed. He said, look, Ron, if you want to make any money, just go and make your own religion. So he did. It's called Dianetics to start with, and now it's evolved into Scientology. And it's bonkers. It makes billions of dollars a year. Unfortunately, L. Ron Hubbard is no longer with us to enjoy all that money, but he did die a rich man. If you're going to join a cult, then perhaps the Raelians are the ones to join. They have these huggings. Sorry about this, ladies, because it doesn't really involve you. You get these beautiful semi-naked women come up and hug you on the street, and it's only men can have any sort of prowess throughout and progress throughout the Raelian religion anyway. Women are a secondary sort of source to them, which is great if you're a man, but it's bonkers as well. And this is based upon the belief that aliens have come here and given particular scriptures. They're not the only ones. This is the Aetherius Society here in the UK. We've already got alien religions here. We might think of them as totally batty, but people believe these kind of things. So if an alien turned up tomorrow and said that he believed in a particular God and this is his Bible and it trains us to do this and that and the other, to reach astral planes, to contact our dead loved ones, millions would follow them within years. So I don't think that religion is ever going to go away. It will evolve. even the secular, or the religions that we have at this moment in time, the well set up ones like Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and so on, they would alter to suit. Now, what about the technology? Because we all want that, don't we? We want our cities transformed. We want flying cars. We want this, that, and the other. We want stuff that we can wear because we've fed up of having it on a smartphone, aren't we? Well, the next form of technology is definitely wearable, isn't it? We've already got several different forms of wearable technology. And as Arthur said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. How do we react to all this kind of thing? Wow. But there are problems here, aren't there? Okay. We live in the affluent West. Okay. It's not to say the East isn't affluent either, but it's a case of we are used to having technologies come to us all the time. We are not surprised when a new technology comes out, but what we generally are surprised at is how much it costs and what we do with that. Would it change us? Or would it enlarge the divides between the haves and the have-nots? And it does, doesn't it? I work, I'm a supply teacher in the school at the moment because I'm semi-retired anyway. I can't go to the observatory anymore under COVID rules. So it's a case of, we've got kids who are on smartphones all day. And they're arguing over whose phone is best. Do they do exactly the same thing? Can you get on the internet with it? Can you send texts? Can you go on TikTok? Can you do this? Can you do that? Yeah, they can all do that. So why is one of them better than another? Because it's made by blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It does the same thing. But you can see that even within the technologies that we have invented, there are differences in attitude toward their uses and toward the people who actually have them too. So our economy is going to be better regulated. We would hope so, but I can't see that happening. Would national boundaries dissolve if we were able to instantly go from one place to another? We would hope so, but then there's going to be a big fight on a political basis for that kind of thing, isn't there? Would it save the planet from current problems? No. When has technology ever done that? All technology has ever done is to create more problems than they actually solve a lot of the times, because we're not in a position to foresee what these things are used for. We are a globe of nearly 8 billion people who interact with each other like this, or like this, what we're doing now. We interact through technology. We rarely talk to each other without some form of technology in the way. My wife and I love going for a walk, and the first thing that we do in the mornings, if we're both at home, is we'd sit in bed and have a cup of tea before we got to get up, and we talk about things, and we talk about anything that comes into our minds or anything that interests us, and it's wonderful. But how many children actually do that with their parents? How many children, do talk to each other without this medium of technology? My own son would sit there on the settee, clicking away, and we'd say, "Well, what are you up to?" "Oh, I'm talking to Sammy Joe." "No, you're not." You're on the phone. "Yeah, well, I'm talking to Sammy Joe. I'm texting her all the time." That's not the same thing, is it? We need that human interaction more than anything else. And of course, what we really want from the aliens is their weaponry, isn't it? We've seen this in District 9, we see it in Predator, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, and so on. Alien technologies of this nature would be pretty bad, okay? And if we ever do end up with it, don't wear red, okay? It's the worst thing you can do. I don't think aliens are going to come here to spread their technology around, especially weapons technology, but it is the one thing that we would really want, and there would be plenty of people who would pay for it in corporate money. Or to utilize it if they could get their hands on. So beware, we might have a world where politicians don't exist anymore, but the whole world is, based on private armies of the rich and powerful. You just never know. And of course, our philosophies would change. Okay, you know, people always ask what the meaning of life is. Well, the meaning of life is quite easy. It is what you make it. It's as simple as that. But Socrates was right. You know, we don't know everything, do we? We still like to think we're the top dog. That's going to change drastically if we ever contact aliens. We may be superior to them, but we're not alone. We're not the top dog of evolution. The universe does not fall to us as our inheritable right. The universe is not ours. So it would be great if we did share the cosmos with other intelligent races, hopefully a bit more benign than ourselves. But will it change our underlying philosophies? Well, it won't do it overnight. It'll do it in time. Just like it took us hundreds of years to get used to the fact that the sun was the center of the solar system. And then in 1913, that changed because it wasn't even in the center of the galaxy either, was it? And now we know it as a small star, but we still like to think of ourselves as important. The Copernican principle, the principle of mediocrity, is a fact. We're not alone, but we're not superior either, okay? We have to vive la différence and enjoy the differences between us and any aliens that are out there. So, our evolving understanding of our place in the cosmos may change us little, might lead to new forms of philosophy opening up based upon the reality of contact somewhere else. So we just don't know. Are aliens here to solve our problems for us? Would it make us look after the planet a bit better? Would they come here with the solutions to the problems? Not necessarily. And if we think that, you know, like so many religionists really in America, that, you know, there's a silver lining in a mushroom cloud because God can take them up into heaven, or like so many, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and a prime example here, believe that God is going to destroy all the evildoers and then they'd be left behind on earth to make it into a paradise. Well, so they're asking for a supreme being to come and solve their problems for them, aren't they? No, it's not going to work. It really isn't going to work. We have the solutions to these problems in our own hands anyway, so we don't need alien help to sort them out. But of course, I don't think that it's going to do with this kind of thing. Within Childhood's End, the TV series, was a rather interesting problem arose, that although the overlords were here to make Earth a paradise and we were going to benefit from all that, there were people within America, naturally, who fought against this kind of thing. They don't want to be fattened up like animals for the slaughter, and so they fought back against this kind of thing. And eventually they just all disappeared, of course, because nobody took them seriously in the end. But it's not going to be like that. The reality of it is going to be completely different. And we cannot envision what it would be like. I can't see that alien contact or alien technology is going to transform our planet immediately. These problems are going to take some time to overcome. And what if they introduce the equivalent of Japanese knotweed? You know, like the red weed from War of the Worlds. You know, would our ecosphere succumb to this kind of thing? Or would it, you know, would they not grow here? It's an interesting conundrum that we would have to be extremely careful of. So ultimately, timing is everything. This is the Allen Telescope Array, which I was very pleased to be partly involved in a long time back. It's still going. It needs funding at the moment because most of the funding has been taken away from it. It was private, but Paul Allen's fund is still going into it, so it's ticking away. It can pick up signals from 10,000 light years away. Great. If we pick up a signal that old, what were we doing 10,000 years ago? The signal is a broadcast to anyone who's out there. It's great that we've picked it up, but by the time we send our signal back and it's received by that civilization that sent it, 20,000 years have passed. What are they doing now? They could be so far ahead of us, or they could be completely extinct. We just don't know. So we hope that any sort of contact is going to be relatively close by, but close enough that we can contact them easily within a century or so, but far enough away that we can keep them at arm's length until we get used to the whole idea. And of course, if we're going to continue looking and searching the skies, we have to be funded. You know, we're not asking for a lot of money. $10 million a year would be more than enough to cover what we do at the moment. But it's $10 million, which is, you know, according to politicians, better spent elsewhere. To be honest, $10 million is a drop in the ocean compared to some of the things that are wasted. But there we are. But timing is everything. We got to get it right all at the same time. We have to be listening. They have to be broadcasting. They have to be listening. We have to be broadcasting. And that's the only way in which we're ever going to pick each other up, unless other forms of contact, such as messenger probe or you know, direct contact, come to fruition. So in summary, it's a very big step. The greatest challenge to mankind I think we will ever face is knowing that we are not alone, because we have been so used to being alone for a long, long time. We can populate the sky with our gods and our heroes and our demons and anything else, but ultimately they all change and they're not real. Contact with an alien species would be real, and it would alter us fundamentally in ways that I probably haven't even covered here, because I can't even think of what they could be either. It'll fundamentally change our outlook culturally, religiously, philosophically. No matter what form that contact takes, it will alter us imperceptibly, but alter us it will. If people get in touch with us, you know, we got protocols for that kind of contact. And I like the way I put this. Plans if they choose to have hostile intent. The plan is basically to run up a white flag, because if they have superior technology to us, we aren't going to last 5 minutes. It's as simple as that. We would want to know what they want. We could put up a bit of a fight, but to be honest, we ain't going to win against superior odds and superior technology. And remember, they got the high ground. They're coming from space. So there's very, very little we could do about it if they did have hostile intent. Would it prove to be a problem solver? Not necessarily. It's going to bring its own problems, problems that we haven't seen as yet. And some of them we've partly discussed here. Would many centuries have to pass before we become part of an interstellar federation of planets? Well, yes, we would be on probation for some time. We would have to be. We don't even have the kind of technology to take us to the edge of the solar system quickly yet. So we're not going to become part of some exploration of our quadrant of the galaxy, are we? It's going to take some time before they can trust us and we can trust them and we get to know anything else that's out there. So when it comes to contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, I still want it to happen in my lifetime. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. I think personally that it's going to take a long, long time before we contact it, for the simple reason that intelligent species in our galaxy are going to be relatively rare. I'm not saying that life is rare. I think that life is fairly abundant, whether it be microbial or low phylum life, whatever. But intelligent life is a series of accidents in evolution. And the same series of accidents doesn't necessarily happen everywhere. The fact that they have here shows that they can happen somewhere else, but it's going to be a relatively rare event. So contact with ETI sounds like a great idea. And it is, as long as we are prepared for the consequences too. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed.
Oh, well, yes, can we sort of acknowledge Martin's superb talk? I'm not sure if you can unmute everybody, Dave.
There we are.
Yeah.
Have I stopped sharing my screen? Yes, I think so.
I think lots of clapping and hands going up there, Martin. That was great fun and very thought provoking. That's just tremendous stuff. Tremendous stuff. It's far more than I could have even thought of. so it's tremendous stuff. I don't know quite the best way of doing questions and answers. Dave, what's your thoughts?
Well, people can unmute themselves if they want to ask a question. So
a query for Martin. It's
all right. Okay, I can't press it in if you want to move.
it's very difficult for me to know who might.
Can you mute yourself if you haven't got a question, just so you don't disturb proceedings? Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm looking around for people with questions. John, have you got one? You're still unmuted, so.
I haven't, but I'm just thinking that since the world and the solar system is made from the solar nebula and it's all condensed, and everything that's on the Earth come from that solar nebula, well, I'm assuming that other worlds would be of a similar situation, and therefore maybe that not so much different from ourselves, unless they're like the dinosaurs, of course.
Well, when we think of them as being different to ourselves, there are going to be some similarities there from a chemical point of view and possibly a biological point of view. We know that carbon is the universal building block for organic life. And obviously there's quite a lot of carbon about. And as you say, John, if we have similarities in the building of planets and planetary systems, then you're going to have basically exactly the same chemistries around as we find here on Earth. I think that the development of life is going to be based upon very, very similar things to what we already are made of here and the biology that we have. But of course, those evolutionary pathways are going to be different. If we go back to the Cambrian period here on Earth, there were so many different forms of life branching out at the time that just no longer exist. They were evolutionary dead ends, and all through evolutionary history and biology here on Earth, we've seen that there have been dead ends, like the dinosaurs. They were great while they lasted, and they were a brilliant form of life. They were very, very adapted to the environments. And well, where are they now? Well, they're actually still around because they're crocodiles, turtles, and birds, but they've evolved. And so it's a case of we would expect to see the same thing on other worlds. But when it comes to the evolution of intelligence, we find that most species on our own planet have got a very similar level of intelligence. They can avoid predators, they can reproduce, they can feed, they can look after each other, but they don't go any higher than that. And we appear to be a little bit of an oddity in that the evolution of our species has come from species that were primates, that had slightly different brains, that had slightly different societies, and those societies began to develop technologies and tools that then led to the evolution of our hands and our brains and things like that. So I think that if we rerun evolution here on Earth again, it would be unlikely that humanity would appear. Sad though that is, but it's the likelihood is that we just would not reappear at all. And therefore, any intelligences elsewhere are going to have to jump through many of the same environmental and evolutionary hoops as ours have. And they might not look exactly the same as us, but they would have to have manipulative technology to actually get on and to drive that additional evolution.
Yeah, well, wherever we look, it's all the same elements everywhere, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, the chemistry of the universe is the same. So
it's all the same elements throughout the solar system.
Yeah, you're right in your original assessment. We've got the same chemistry. What we probably don't have is the same environmental constraints.
Well, yeah, I guess if the world's different, then the planet's different, and maybe atmospheres are different. You know, it's evolution for evolution, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah.
We need a couple of strategically timed asteroids to allow us to evolve.
Well, like Darren's thinking.
But not on the UK.
One thing I just wanted to correct you on something minor. You said in, I admit I'm a bit of a Trekkie, you said in Star Trek everyone speaks English. They don't.
No, I
universal
know.
translator.
Yeah.
And it is confirmed in several episodes when people speak in their natural language. But one of the things that's like maybe it falls foul of Clarke's first law about a failure of imagination. That if you think, if we detect someone who's 10,000 light years away, they can't turn up tomorrow. Well, they could turn up tomorrow with technology we don't know about yet. We believe that you can't travel faster than the speed of light just because we've not done it yet. We believe we couldn't travel faster than 30 miles an hour until people did it. And we thought we'd die if we did that until people did it. So it's just, I think we need to be careful. You're saying we may not make contact in our lifetime. We may make contact this evening.
That would be cool, but we have to remember when it comes to the speed of light that this is a universal constraint. We cannot go faster than light because of what it does to our mass, the energy and things like that. So there may be forms of technology which we can bend the rules, but they would still be, very close to the speed of light. The only way in which we're ever going to sort of circumvent that kind of thing is to come up with wormhole technology, and that might not even solve that problem either. There are so many ifs and buts about it. So yes, I agree with you, Darren. I'm probably showing my age when it comes to Star Trek. I was going by the the James Kirk era, whereas actually a guy who teaches Klingon lives down the road from me. So I'll make an introduction if you want to learn it. It's great to see that, yes, we've taken those things into consideration, and of course aliens will have their own language, but when it comes to the technology, anything that is going to be based upon, as John said, we've got the same metals, we've got the same materials, we have the same chemistries available throughout the cosmos. If you're going to do anything that's physical, then you're going to be constrained by physical laws as well. Sorry.
Last questions from the
audience? I have one. Yeah. We sort of seem to assume that other life forms have at least some level of similarity with our own. Why? That's not necessarily true. We could have life forms that are so different that we don't even recognize them as life. And they could be here already without our knowing it.
Yeah, I've come across that before, and it's an interesting sort of thing, because what forms of life would we not understand? They would have to be something that is non-biological, basically, because even things that are biological, even if they're not based upon carbon, we still have the ability to detect the chemicals that they would be based upon. And of course, they would show signs of some form of life as well. But our problem is trying to define what life is, because ultimately, if we try to think about it as something that, that the ultimate biological one is, it reproduces and undergoes Darwinian evolution, right? Okay, our technology does that anyway. And, would we consider that to be alive? No, it's something that we create, and it leapfrogs. So, Jens, you're absolutely right. We would have to be very, very circumspect in what we think of as being living, but we can only recognize what we would recognize. If there were some sort of incorporeal life forms around us today that couldn't contact us, we would be completely unaware of their existence, and they might well be completely unaware of ours. And that would be sad, because it may be some sort of intelligent life form, but we're never going to have a level playing field to get on with them.
No, but that's the problem. We can't even define, well, at least I can't define life completely without any kind of controversy. There's always some wiggle room. We can't even define what a species is. We thought we could, but it's breaking down. So we have problems with language when we're talking about this.
Yeah,
we're limited by our own language.
Yeah, it's I think that it's our own problem more than anything else. We tend to define things as we understand them, and that understanding is not always complete anyway. We don't have a full understanding.
Exactly.
And therefore, you know, it's like intelligence. You know, how do you define intelligence? My answer to that one has always been the Supreme Court Justice Stuart Potter's, "I know it when I see it." Yeah. And being a Supreme Court Justice, he probably didn't see much coming before him. And so we have to work within the constraints of what we already know, because that gives us a foundation for understanding. But then to go beyond that becomes speculation until we can actually, you know, define the evidence and gather that evidence that then pushes us down a new path. So your ideas are something that we've already considered, as you can see, but until we've got a more assured ideology regarding that, then there's very little we can do other than look for the obvious.
Yeah, but my point is that be careful that we don't constrain ourselves.
Yeah.
Too much unnecessarily.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we have to be constrained in science into the things that we already know and understand and brought out from there. When we try and go beyond that, it's great speculation, but we have to base it in some form of known reality. And that's when things get very, very difficult for us. Because as you can imagine, amongst SETI scientists, we are very much like you. We speculate endlessly. We come up with all kinds of different ideas on what aliens could be like. And, you know, and ultimately they're still based upon what we can imagine. What if they're based upon something we can't imagine, as you've already said? You know, oh, wow, then we got a problem.
The failure of imagination.
Yeah.
Well,
very good.
I think it's fair to say that Martin stimulated our imaginations with overtime today. Absolutely fantastic, thought-provoking stuff, Martin. It's really a very great launch of our 2021 astronomy meetings, and very, very many thanks for coming along and giving us what is marvelous and, you know, just mind-expanding stuff. And I hope you find an alien before too long. You know, that would be lovely. Yes.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you everyone for having me.
Well, I think
you have a season well 2021.
Yeah, lovely. Tremendous stuff, Martin.
Thank you very much.
Now, I just wanted to mention a couple of things before we close down. Dave's has sustained us very well through the Virtual Astronomy Club. And I'm delighted that some of you from the Virtual Astronomy Club have joined us tonight. That's tremendous. The next one is a week on Tuesday, where we have Paul Fellow talking about quark stars and strangelets. So that sounds fairly mind-blowing as well. So that's super stuff. So try and join the Virtual Astronomy Club through Dave's link on his webpage. That would be great. Our next meeting is on the 8th of February with Mike Frost, who's the director of the historical section of the British Astronomical Association, talking about some of the lady astronomers who've made great progress in the subject, and that should be a great evening. Mike's one of our regular speakers and a great favourite, so hope you can all come to that. So I think we're up and running again, boys and girls. Obviously, anyone at this meeting is very welcome to join us at any of our future meetings, as well as Dave's meetings, and look forward to seeing you all. I'll be there next Tuesday, Dave, a week on Tuesday, and hopefully see many of you there. So I'll close the meeting now with final thanks to Martin, and hope you have a safe journey to your bedroom, Martin.
You try. You take care, all. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.